Also, I see my father walk out. I went, he takes me out of the car, takes me for a walk. He says, you know, your brother's gone.
John Gotti's children grew up in the shadow of one of America's most notorious mob bosses. They witnessed tragedy, faced impossible choices, and carried a name that was both their inheritance and their curse. But it's what happened to them decades later that will leave you terrified. The foundation. Growing up, Gotti. The name Gotti carries weight in New York, a mixture of fear, fascination, and infamy that has endured for decades. John Joseph Gotti Jr., born on October 27, 1940 in the Bronx, rose from absolute poverty to become one of the most notorious crime bosses in American history. But behind the headlines, the trials, and the legend of the Dapper Don, there was a family, a real family with children who had to navigate the impossible task of being both John Gotti's kids and just kids. Today, we're diving deep into what actually happened to John Gotti's children. Where are they now? How did they survive the weight of that name? And what price did they pay for being born into one of America's most infamous crime families? Let me take you back to where it all began. Howard Beach, Queens, a quiet, middle-class neighborhood that seemed worlds away from the gritty streets where John Gotti Sr. grew up. This was where John and his wife, Victoria DiGiorgio, decided to raise their 5 children: Angela, Victoria, John Jr., Frank, and Peter. Victoria DiGiorgio, born on December 5, 1942 in Brooklyn, came from a mixed heritage. Russian on her father's side, Italian on her mother's. The couple first met in 1958 at a Brooklyn bar. She was 16, he was 18. Their connection was instant, leading to a courtship that unfolded against the backdrop of Gotti's budding criminal activities. They married on March 6, 1962, establishing a household that would become a sanctuary amid the chaos of mob life. But here's what's fascinating, and this is something that gets lost in all the mob movies and documentaries. John Gotti was, by many accounts, an attentive father. He threw extravagant parties, emphasized education, and insisted his children stay out of the life. He even sent John Jr. to the prestigious New York Military Academy, hoping structure and discipline would keep his son on a different path.
Did you know what your father,
No. I knew nothing of it. Ironically, people ask that and they look at me sometimes like, oh, come on. But realistically?
That's Victoria Gotti, John's daughter, describing her childhood, and she's not alone in this experience. The Gotti children grew up in a world where their father's profession was quite literally the elephant in every room, something everyone knew about but nobody discussed.
I remember reading, did I suspect that he was different, that things were different from an early age, maybe 12, 13? Yes, I did. I didn't quite understand, but the way we were raised was really, we didn't discuss certain things. And it was, don't ask, don't tell, don't, just be quiet.
Think about that for a moment. Imagine being 12 or 13 years old, noticing that your father is different from everyone else's dad, sensing that something isn't quite right about the men who come to visit, the whispered conversations, the way people look at your family, but being taught that asking questions is forbidden. The children enjoyed material comforts from Gotti's illicit earnings, including a spacious home and luxury items, which blurred the lines between legitimate family life and mob perks. But these material benefits came with a heavy price. Schoolyard taunts and FBI surveillance became part of daily life, with agents often parked outside their home, creating an atmosphere of paranoia and isolation. John Jr. had perhaps the most revealing experience of discovering his father's true identity. He was away at military academy when the full weight of reality crashed down on him.
I was in the day room. And we had a TV. The TV was in the day room. So when we had some downtime, we weren't drilling, whatever have you, or playing sports, you go to the day room, watch TV. And I'm watching, and it was like an undercover operation. They're talking about the garment center. And I had a picture of my father with a gray sport jacket on.
Picture this. You're a teenage boy at a military academy, sitting in a day room with your fellow cadets, and suddenly your father's face appears on the television screen, identified as a captain in the Gambino crime family. Everyone turns to look at you. The whispers start. And in that moment, your entire world shifts.
And all of a sudden, I'm like sweating a little bit, like I'm getting nervous. Like, my sphincters tighten up now. I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh shit, I'm getting very uncomfortable. And all of a sudden, in the front row, and they're like talking to each other, and they all turn and they're looking at me now.
But the truth is, even before that televised moment, the Gotti children had been living with the weight of their father's absences. Gotti's frequent imprisonments, including his 1968-1972 stint at Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary for hijacking and his 1974-1977 sentence for the McBratney murder, left Victoria DiGiorgio to handle parenting solo.
Did you guys go visit or no?
My first birthday, my father was doing a year in Riverhead. He was doing a larceny bid in, I think, auto theft bid, rather, in Riverhead. He did a year there. That was my first birthday. He was there. And then he came home for a brief amount of time.
John Jr. would later reveal that by the time he was 13 years old, his father had spent 9 of those years in prison. Think about that. More than 2/3 of his childhood without his father at home. Victoria DiGiorgio embraced the role of devoted stay-at-home mother, often raising the children alone during Gotti's frequent absences. In a rare 1999 interview with the New York Post, she reflected on their enduring bond. "I have spent 39 years of my life with him, and God willing, I will spend the next 39 years of my life with him. Is John a saint? Oh no, I don't think so, but I love him." But Victoria's loyalty wasn't blind devotion. She expressed profound disappointment when their son John Jr. entered the mob, feeling betrayed by Gotti's allowance of it, which temporarily fractured their communication while he was imprisoned. Despite his criminal empire, John Gotti Sr. tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy for his kids. But as John Jr. describes, there was something undeniably different about his father, a presence, a swagger, a way of carrying himself that set him apart from every other father in the neighborhood.
Brown Lincoln Continental. That's what he came home. He had a chocolate brown Lincoln Continental. The car pulls down the block, pulls in his driveway. We live in a row of row houses, second off the corner, little green awning, simple house. And he gets out of the car. He's got a light brown mock neck, chocolate brown suit with a matching overcoat. And he gets out of the car with jet black hair. And I've described it in my book. It was Tony Curtis with muscles. He came out of the car and he looked and he just surveyed the area. He got out of the car, he shot his jacket, he fixed it, looked down, he saw him, I waved to him, and he just walked like he owned the place.
This was the duality of John Gotti, the loving father who showed up in style, the man who commanded respect wherever he went, and the crime boss whose empire was built on violence and intimidation. For his children, reconciling these two versions of their father would prove to be a lifelong challenge, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared the Gotti family for what was about to happen on a quiet afternoon in March 1980, an event so tragic, so devastating, that it would change the trajectory of the entire family forever and lead to one of the most infamous disappearances in New York mob history, the tragedy that changed everything. March 18, 1980, Howard Beach, Queens, New York. It was just another Tuesday afternoon in the quiet, middle-class neighborhood where the Gottis lived. Frank Gotti, the fourth child, was 12 years old, the adored baby of the family. Victoria described him as her little doll in her memoir, dressing him up and cherishing his playful energy. Earlier that day, Frank had been fighting in school, getting into trouble as he often did. John Gotti Sr., who usually showed remarkable restraint with his children, had finally had enough.
She brings him in the house, but she tells my father. My mother would take beating for us if she had to. She was fiercely loyal to her kids. She says, "Johnny, I'm telling you right now, don't put your hands on him. Keep your mouth shut. Go get him."
But Gotti couldn't contain his frustration anymore.
Walks in the house, and as soon as he comes in the house, and he had it with Frankie, and he gives him an ass whipping.
Are you there? You're seeing this?
No, I'm in military school. I'm away.
Got it.
I heard afterwards, and this is where my father ate him up. It completely ate him up because he never put his hands on Frankie, but he had enough. And that was it. He told him, "It's it. Up to your room. You're punished. That's it." Blah, blah, blah. And he told my mother, "He's not to leave this house. You understand me? He don't leave this goddamn house. That's it."
John Gotti Sr. then left the house on business. Frank was supposed to stay in his room, grounded. But like any 12-year-old boy would, he snuck out to meet up with his friends.
Frankie sneaks out of the house and meets up with some friends, goes on a mini bike, and gets hit by a car and gets killed.
I didn't know that story.
Yeah.
Frank was riding a friend's motorized mini bike when he darted out from behind a dumpster into the path of an oncoming car, driven by neighbor John Favara. Witnesses reported that Frank rode unsafely into traffic, and Favara, momentarily blinded by the low-setting sun, struck him unintentionally.
So he came off the Belt Parkway, and the sun was low, and the car nailed him, hit him, dragged him about several hundred feet. He was stuck under the car, actually.
The impact threw Frank under the vehicle, causing fatal injuries, including massive head trauma. He was rushed to Jamaica Hospital but was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The New York Police Department ruled the incident an accident, with no charges filed against Favara, as evidence supported that Frank had entered the street abruptly without warning. Victoria DiGiorgio collapsed in grief when she received the news. John Gotti Sr. was in Florida on mob business at the time. The call came, and according to reports, it left him inconsolable. For John Jr., who was away at military academy, the news came in the most devastating way possible.
My father sent the car up to come get me at military school, and they came to my room. They told me that put your service uniform on and someone's coming to pick you up. Someone's coming to pick me up, put my service uniform on. It didn't make any sense. We don't know anything else. So I had to go to my quarters, put my service uniform on, my white gloves, my hat, and I went and I waited. I sat there and waited. Car pulls up, and driving the car was a gentleman who did time with my father in Lewisburg. His name was Charlie DeCanio, and another gentleman named Mark. He recently died in prison. They picked me up, got in the car. They wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't talk. They were very somber. And like Mark was sort of like holding back and crying.
Imagine being driven home, not knowing what happened, seeing grown men, hardened criminals on the verge of tears, refusing to speak, the uncertainty, the fear building with every mile.
I get home, I pull in front of the house. They tell me, wait here. I see everybody by my house. A lot of people there. They both get out of the car, and I'm in the car by myself now in the back seat. Wait here, I can't get out and go in my own house. And I'm sitting there, I'm fidgeting in the car.
And then
the father walked out. I went, he's okay. What could this be all about? Never hit me. And he takes me out of the car, takes me for a walk. He says, your brother's gone.
Just 3 words, your brother's gone.
He told you this?
Did.
Man, I am so sorry. I did not know this whole story. Wow.
The emotional fallout from Frank's death rippled through the family, exacerbating existing tensions and instilling a pervasive sense of loss that influenced their interpersonal relationships and individual coping mechanisms.
This point, while this is taking place, it's holy moly.
Yeah. It was, you sort of think to yourself, you say, maybe if I didn't go away to school and I was here, it wouldn't have happened.
The guilt, the what-ifs, these are the things that haunt survivors of tragedy. And for the Gotti family, the grief was compounded by their father's public position.
So for several years, I beat myself up over that. But I know my father most certainly beat himself up over it. And he would never show that emotion. My father was a true soldier.
John Gotti Sr. sat for 3 days during Frank's wake, greeting people from all over, Buffalo, Pennsylvania, everywhere, showing them his son.
He postured by that coffin, and he greeted people from all over. They came from Buffalo, Pennsylvania, they came from all over. And he greeted everybody, and he'd walk them over and show them his son, brush his hair back. And he kept it all together. I couldn't keep it together.
Oh my God, no way.
I couldn't keep it together.
But privately, that was different.
But when he had his own quiet time, when he had his own time, that's when he would mourn. You'd hear him at night. He'd mourn.
You ever saw him in front of you, like when he never showed it in front
never
of you?
one time. He would do it. My bedroom was attached to his den. So the vent was right there. It was a thin wall that's attached. So where my bed was, there was a vent to the right side of my bed. And that's where the couches were, and there was a fireplace in his den. And I would hear him. I'd hear my father. He would mourn on his own terms to himself.
Victoria DiGiorgio entered a period of deep depression that she never truly recovered from. She still lives in the same Howard Beach house to this day, refusing to change Frank's room.
She often drifts back to Frankie Boy all the time. She's still in the same house. She won't change his room. She's never going to move on. I ask her to, Ma, move out to the island with us, get rid of the house, stay with us. No. She says, my son's in this house. I still hear my husband come up the stairs at night.
Wow.
I'm staying here.
Think about that. More than 4 decades later, and Victoria DiGiorgio still hears her dead son in that house, still refuses to move, still keeps his room exactly as it was. The tragedy didn't just take Frank. It froze a part of that family in time. But the story doesn't end with the accident. What happened next would transform this family tragedy into one of the most notorious mob tales in New York history. John Favara, the 51-year-old service manager at a furniture factory who struck Frank, had no criminal record. It was a genuine accident. The police said so. The evidence said so. But none of that mattered. Victoria DiGiorgio attacked Favara with a metal baseball bat during his attempted apology visit to their home, an act born of raw fury. Subsequent harassment followed, death threats, vandalism like slashed tires and smashed windows on Favara's property, forcing him to put his house up for sale. Then, on July 28, 1980, just over 4 months after Frank's death, John Favara disappeared. He was last seen being forced into a maroon Mercury Marquis station wagon outside outside Castro convertible in New Hyde Park, Long Island, by two unidentified men. Witnesses described him being clubbed with a baseball bat before being bundled into the vehicle, which sped away. His car was found abandoned at JFK Airport, but no trace of him emerged despite extensive searches. What happened to John Favara? FBI investigations and informant testimonies, including from Gambino hitman Charles Carneglia during his 2009 trial, suggested Favara was shot in the legs at a Brooklyn warehouse, chained to a wooden board, dismembered with a chainsaw while still alive, and dissolved in a barrel of acid. Other accounts vary. Some claim he was buried in a concrete barrel and dumped in the ocean, while a 2008 informant alleged Gotti ordered the hit at a Queens restaurant before departing for Florida to establish an alibi. Gotti denied involvement in taped conversations, dismissing it as bullshit, but the timing and circumstances fueled speculation. No body was ever recovered, and the case remains unsolved, classified as a presumed homicide. For the Gotti family, Favara's disappearance brought mixed emotions, relief for some, guilt for others, but ultimately a darker shadow over their grieving process. Victoria DiGiorgio reportedly felt justified, viewing it as closure. But for the children, particularly John Jr., this event represented something else entirely, a point of no return. Frank's death and Favara's disappearance profoundly shaped the siblings' lives and relationships, fostering a tight-knit bond forged in adversity, but also contributing to cycles of trauma. John Jr.'s mob involvement may have stemmed from a desire to honor his father's protective legacy post Frank's death. The family was never the same, and neither was John Gotti Sr.'s approach to his children's futures, because after losing Frank, the one thing John Gotti wanted more than anything was to keep his remaining children safe, even if that meant pulling them deeper into the very world he'd once tried to shield them from. But could any of them escape, or were they already too far gone? The legacy, where are they now? The years following Frank's death marked a dramatic shift in the Gotti family's trajectory. John Gotti Sr.'s rise to become boss of the Gambino crime family in 1985 brought unprecedented attention. The Dapper Don was everywhere. Newspapers, television, the subject of endless fascination. But behind the headlines, his children were grappling with impossible choices about their own futures. Let's start with John A. Jr. Gotti, whose story is perhaps the most complex of all the siblings. Born February 14, 1964, John Jr. grew up idolizing his father. Despite attending New York Military Academy, by his late teens, he was drawn into the Gambino fold, becoming an associate around 1982. His formal induction as a made man occurred on Christmas Eve 1988 at age 24, making him one of the youngest fully initiated members in Mafia history. By 1990, at just 26, he was promoted to captain. When Gotti Sr. was sentenced to life in 1992, John Jr. stepped up as acting boss from 1992 to 1999, but he was inexperienced, and associates plotted against him. In 1998, John Jr. was indicted on federal racketeering charges. He pleaded guilty in 1999 to reduced charges, receiving a 77-month sentence and a $1 million fine. His mother pushed for his plea and exit from the mob, but the government wasn't done. Released in 2004, he faced immediate re-indictment. What followed was surreal. His first trial in 2005 ended in a mistrial. A second in 2006 also mistried. A third in 2006 again deadlocked. Prosecutors dropped charges in 2006 after 4 mistrials. Then came a 2008 Tampa federal indictment charging him with conspiracy to commit 3 murders. The 2009 trial ended in mistrial, and in 2010 the government declined retrial. John Jr. claims he formally left the mob in 1999. Today he lives quietly in Oyster Bay Cove, Long Island, married to Kimberly Albanese with 6 children, including John Gotti III, a professional MMA and boxing fighter. He authored the 2015 memoir, Shadow of My Father. But even in 2025, controversy persists. In February 2025, a $50 million lawsuit was filed against Kimberly and daughter Gianna over a high school basketball game altercation. Now, Victoria Gotti, who took perhaps the most public path. Born November 8, 1962, Victoria carved out a career as a writer and television personality. She served as a columnist for the New York Post. She authored her first book in 1995, followed by mystery novels and her 2009 memoir, This Family of Mine, which became a New York Times bestseller. Television amplified her visibility. From 2004 to 2005, she starred in A&E's Growing Up Gotti, chronicling her life, raising 3 sons, Carmine Jr., John, and Frank. Her marriage to Carmine Agnello, which began in 1984 was tumultuous. Agnello was indicted in 2000 for racketeering, receiving a 9-year sentence. Victoria filed for divorce in 2003. Their marriage had begun with heartbreak. Their daughter Justine was stillborn in 1985. Doctors told Victoria she could never have children again, but she miraculously went on to give birth to 3 sons. In 2019, Victoria executive produced the Lifetime biopic Victoria Gotti, My Father's Daughter. As of November 2025, she maintains an active Instagram with over 172,000 followers. But 2025 brought legal troubles for Victoria's sons. In June, John and Frank Agnello were charged with assault for allegedly beating their brother-in-law. They pleaded not guilty, with the case ongoing. Additionally, Carmine Gotti Agnello pleaded guilty in September 2024 to COVID-19 relief fraud, stealing over $1 million, facing up to 20 years with sentencing pending. Angela Angel Gotti, the eldest daughter born in 1961, maintained distance from mob operations. In recent years, she's emerged as a digital advocate. By 2025, Angela became a YouTuber and podcaster. Her February 2025 YouTube video garnered attention. In June, she appeared on the Racket Report podcast. Peter Gotti, the youngest child born around 1974, had peripheral mob involvement. In 2002, he was charged with racketeering. Convicted in 2004, he received a 25-year sentence. In 2020, he was granted compassionate release. Post-release, Peter lives privately, maintaining the most reclusive persona. Victoria Gotti has perhaps the most poignant reflections on her father's final days.
I think it's the same thing that anybody who loses someone they love, does or says. I say it all the time, One more time, if I had said, I love you, how important he was. But he had this thing towards the end that he did not want us. I didn't know at the time, but I would have, believe me, I would have fought that, and I would not have tolerated it.
John Gotti Sr. made his younger brother and son promise that when it got to the end, visits were to be stopped. He didn't want his children to see him that way. John Gotti Sr. died on June 10, 2002, from throat cancer while imprisoned. Victoria reflects on her father's legacy.
And he said, my gosh, he said, hon, he said, I would be home. He said, what I wouldn't give, he said, to sit in a chair and watch them all run around, jump all over me, he said, and for me to look around and see what I built, what I created. And he would say to her, I can't believe that you would, not feel like driving over, or you would miss it.
So what happened to John Gotti's children? The answer is complex. They survived. They adapted. They carry scars visible and invisible. The Gambino crime family has weakened significantly, but the name Gotti remains synonymous with organized crime in America. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.